I'm sure that each of us has had the experience of saying something, hearing the words come out of your mouth, and then immediately regretting that you just said that. Anyone, that ever happened to anyone, or is that just me? Just me, okay. So I had this experience on Wednesday. It was the first night of our adult Bible study for Lent. We were about to explore the book of Exodus, and I said, "So, how familiar are you with the book of Exodus?" There was silence in the room, and I immediately regretted my decision. It was a little bit rescued when I said, "Okay, you don't have to answer. You could just put up a number between 1 and 10. 1 being not very familiar, 10 being I could teach this class." Our average score is about 2.2. So that's a little low, but that's okay. I want us to think together this morning a little bit about the Bible, about how we read the Bible, about why we read the Bible, about why the Bible is such an important feature of the Christian community. I want to say that I think the Episcopal way of being Christian, the Episcopal Church, has many, many charisms and blessings to offer the wider Christian family. One of the things that I would say we're not as good at is really knowing what is in the Bible. I would say, and I put myself at the head of this list, even the day I went off to seminary, the day I had decided to go and be a priest, I would say my level of biblical literacy was pretty low. I didn't really know what was in there. I didn't really understand how the Bible was structured. And most importantly, I didn't really know how to read the Bible. I didn't really understand the way, a good way of reading the Bible that would work for me. And I think a lot of Episcopalians find themselves in that place of knowing the Bible's important, not quite understanding why the Bible's important or being able to articulate it, and therefore being somewhat ignorant, we are, of exactly what is in there. So I want to explore that just for a minute, and I'll just do that by sharing my own personal experience of ambivalence about the Bible and therefore ignorance about the Bible. And in Lent, it's the season of the church when we're encouraged to spend more time with the Bible. We're encouraged to try to be more intentional about our relationship with the Scriptures. So I think it's worth a little exploration today. So when I was in high school, I took my sabbatical from church. I went just at Christmas, and then even then it was kind of a fight, and I would sit in the last pew and just keep my head down. And the reason that I did that is because really what I knew about Christianity at that point had to do with what I saw on the news and in the media about what Christians were like and what Christians believed. And the way that that was portrayed in that time, in that place, was as people who read the Bible and in the Bible were told what they should do with their life, and then they went out and they did it. And if you didn't do it, just like that, there was this kind of mutual castigation, and you would be vilified for not living up to these standards. This is one way of reading the Bible, to look in the Bible for direct daily advice about the choices you should make and how you should live your life. To look for one-to-one correspondence between a verse that teaches a particular choice and then implementing in your life. It's a kind of two-step process, or 3 steps. Have the dilemma, find the right text, implement. Step 4, castigate others who don't implement. That did not work for me. And I left. I just left church. I left, not just I didn't go, but I left it in my heart. I was like, what is this? This isn't something that has meaning for me. And so I had this began in me a period of ambivalence about the Bible's authority. If this is how we're to use the Bible, if this is what we mean when we say the Bible is inspired by God to help us find salvation, I don't want this. I can't do that. It turns out, I discovered later, that it's actually quite hard to read the Bible in that way, and only in that way, for your whole life. Because in fact, the Bible is quite contradictory on many of the topics in which you go to it seeking for direct guidance in that way. But I didn't know that when I was in high school. I didn't get that. So I just said, I don't know, this book is just used for behavior control, and I don't want any part of that, so I'm leaving. As a result, I developed in myself the first moment of saying, when it comes to faith, it can't just be what someone tells me to believe. It has to be what I really feel. It has to be what I really think. And I have to struggle with articulating what I really believe and not just receive the beliefs that others have given to me. So that was a positive. The negative is that I didn't open the Bible for another 10 years. All right? Well, maybe 8. That's a problem, because I didn't know what was in there. And I wasn't able, until I went back to reading the Bible again, I wasn't able to articulate why the scriptures are so important as a foundation of Christian community. And not the kind of Christian community that I wanted no part of, but the kind of Christian community that we have here in this place. The kind of Christian community in which we feel our call is to be a blessing for each other, to sustain each other in the work of being people of love and compassion and generosity in every dimension of our lives, even when it's really hard, even when we screw up, even when we need forgiveness. That's the kind of Christian community that I long to be part of. It turns out that's the kind of Christian community that the Bible invites us into, but I didn't know that. And I couldn't make those connections because I didn't read the thing. Didn't do the reading, as one of my college professors kept saying week in and week out. You have to do the reading. So, how do you do the reading? How do you read the Bible? I want to offer you 3 different ways, 3 lenses within which you can read the scriptures. And I invite you in your own Bible study, whatever that is, whether it's once a year, opening the book and finding a passage, whether you are faithfully doing daily meditations this Lent using one of our resources, whether you're coming to our Wednesday night series, whether you're engaging in a personal Bible reading project, whatever your way of reading the Bible is, I want to offer you 3 lenses within which to allow that material to percolate through your being. So the first way of reading the Bible that I want to offer you involves reading the Bible for inspiration. So this would involve taking modest-sized chunks, not trying to read the whole thing from cover to cover, not even trying to read a whole book of the Bible, or even necessarily a whole chapter at one time, but taking a passage that for whatever reason makes you curious, makes you interested, makes you want to know more, so that your attitude towards it will be one of curiosity and not one of ambivalence or fear about what you might find. And read it and see what images pop out at you. See what words or what phrases call to you. And let that be enough to start. Let it be enough to notice what images or words are drawing your attention. In today's passage from the Gospel, as I read that passage in this way, the images that draw my attention are these animal images of foxes and hens. They seem such odd images for for Jerusalem in the 1st century. Foxes and hens seem like farm images in America in the 19th century. So they really grab my attention. And what do those images say to you as you sit with them? Well, to me, foxes and hens, it's the image of evil and innocence. The fox, the sly creature, and the hen, the creature of care and protection and love, endlessly offering that protection and care and love, even when it's rejected, offering it again. Some of us may be able to identify with that, especially if we have young children. And the fox, always conniving, always trying to exercise his power, always trying to feed its appetite. Foxes and hens, evil and innocence. Where do you see evil and innocence in your life? Where do you struggle as the hen? What part of you is like the fox? So that's one way, that's one lens into reading Scripture, is just doing that much. Okay, lens number 2. We call it the historical critical lens. And this is for all you people who like research. When was this passage written? Who wrote it? Why is it in the Bible? Who are these Pharisees? What are they for? Why are they trying to help Jesus in this passage? Usually when Jesus is with the Pharisees, they're trying to get him. But here they're warning him that Herod is coming after him. Why is that? When Luke says at the very end of this passage, your house will be left to you. Another way of translating that is your house will destroy itself. What's he talking about? Turns out he's talking about the temple, which by the time Luke wrote this gospel had been destroyed again by the Romans. And Luke reads that as a sign of Israel's unfaithfulness, leading to the Roman Empire's destruction of the temple and their loss of their sacred worshiping, of the Jews' sacred loss of their sacred worshiping place. What does that imply about God's relationship to the Jews, God's relationship to Gentiles? What does that mean in terms of how we, reading today, can understand what this author is trying to accomplish? What beefs is the author working out through the words he's putting in Jesus' mouth? Who is he trying to attract, to invite into the Christian life? Who is he trying to castigate? Why? What is the historical reason? This way of reading the Bible is great because it encourages you to use your critical faculties. It invites us all not to shy away from what we know about the context in which the Bible was written. We don't just have to read the Bible as a set of instructions. We can read it as a story, as a historical document written in times and places with particular intention. Of course, the downside is we don't know a whole lot about the first century. So our historical analysis is limited. We might know 10% of what we would need to know to reconstruct the context of any one book or passage in the Bible. So it's a good tool, but it's not the only tool. And then we have the devotional way of reading or inspirational way. We have the kind of historical, critical way of reading the Bible. And then we have the way of reading the Bible that all of you do every time you're here in church, which is we read the Bible liturgically. We read the Bible during worship. The Episcopal Church reads a lot of Scripture in its worship services. Today, we'll read 4 different passages from the Bible, all of them at least 15 or 20 verses. That is a lot of Scripture for an hour, on a bad day, an hour and 15 minutes of worship. We read Scripture together. And the reason we do that in the Episcopal Church is because we believe that no single person has the monopoly on the right way to read the Bible. And we have more insight and more wisdom and greater clarity about what God is trying to invite us into when we read the Bible together and when we talk about how each of us hears any particular passage or image. And as we read the Bible together over the 3 years of the lectionary, we are hearing again and again the central themes of the Bible, the themes of God's covenant promises to us, to be our God even when we're unfaithful, to never abandon us, the theme of Christ's compassion and service, especially for those who are weak or poor or marginalized or who are out of luck in the world. They're the ones who are in luck in God's kingdom. These themes, when we read these passages in church again and again, kind of seep into us and become the code by which we decode any particular passage. They become the key by which we decode any particular passage of the Bible. And I got to tell you, just personally, in my own desire to love and trust and understand the Bible more, it is by focusing on these themes and looking for their recurrence in each part of the Bible that I read that I have found more and more use, worth, and love for these scriptures. Wherever you are in your own relationship with the Bible, I would urge you, one, to think about that. Try to understand where you are in your relationship with the Bible. Are you avoiding it? And why? Are you infatuated with it? And why? Are you approaching it from a sense of scholarship, from a sense of devotion? What are you looking for in those Holy Scriptures? And how are you inviting God to speak to you through these sacred words that generation after generation after generation of community have read, have prayed with, have wrestled with, have talked about, have argued about, in an effort to more and more discern what it is that God would have us do as individuals, as families, as community, and as this world. So I offer that to you in your Lenten journey this year as we engage this invitation to know God more fully as God is revealed in the Word, the living Word, here and now among us.